Hello, this is Max Drake. I want to do a follow-on video on this one here about activating Python scripts from auto hotkey and looking about doing it Pythonically. But there's a few things I just want to talk about, features of the script itself. Now, you end up with a script and you end up with a whole lot of hotkeys, and then you don't use them all the time, and then you forget what the hotkeys are. So you suddenly think, oh, I've got to go and find the script and look that up and do some things. So we're just going to trigger that particular script through there, and we're just going to trigger it through there. Now, one of the things with all our hotkeys is it has a little icon through here. So if you hover over them, it gives you a little bit of information on there. So this one here that we got down here is the rumpy utility one. Now, if I right-hand click on there, I've actually added, there's all these little things, little menu items that you can do. So I've added another one, which is called hotkey help. So it says for that particular script, here's the hotkeys that you've actually got in there doing these particular scripts. So it's a really handy place to keep a list of all the hotkeys that you've got, so that if you're not using them frequently, and if you can't remember the hotkeys, you suddenly think, oh, don't use it that way, it's what a waste of time. So it isn't, but if you've got something there, then it's not. Like F1's fine, but if you've got, you know, something like 6 or 7 different scripts running in the background, which one does F1 bring up the hell for? So this is what this is. It's just doing a message box at the beginning of the script. The second thing that I want to demonstrate, now I'm coming across into here and demonstrating here, because if I type something into here, sometimes it stays in there and then it messes up the code. So I'm just coming across here. Now this one here is called apps key run grocery. Now what the last video, I was a bit disappointed because all of the examples of the Python scripts that I used were a bit trivial. Now this one here, I'm going to do the app keys, and I'm just going to come in here and just hit the app key ones. Opens up a command prompt through there. It's going through and doing a web scrape, bringing it back, modifying the JSON data inside of pandas. It's then writing it to a PDF file, and it's then emailing me. So if I click on here, here's that email, and if I just go and look at that email, it's got that as an attachment with all of the grocery, which is the latest one. So it's just gone and scraped it and give me that information. So I don't need to have this set on a task scheduler. I don't need to open up my VS Code and find out where the script is. I can actually just have a hotkey and hit that button straight away, and it can do some quite sophisticated tasks. So that's great. So from the point of view of Python and activating Python scripts and things like that, we can even most probably add variables and do some other things in there. But from that point of view, I thought it was a bit of an example. So when I came over and we looked at doing the hotkeys one, here's one that just runs 3 different hotkeys. That's all it's running through here, and it seems to be a very verbose bit of code to do that. Now I was looking at some videos about triggering Python scripts and things like that, and I came across a hotkeys video where he was suddenly saying, well, look at this Python one, and he had this code up here, and he was using PyInput. And he said, you know, I can do that on one line with all our hotkeys. So, and when I was looking down in the comments below, somebody just had one word, keyboard. And so I went in and I found the keyboard library. And inside the keyboard library, one line inside of Python to actually use a hotkey. In fact, this one here is a better one. Keyboard. So, and the nice thing with this is that my keyboard looks like a keyboard shortcut, Control plus Shift plus A. So I can read that. Whereas with the other library that we were looking at through here, you've got to go and find the virtual key IDs for these ones here, which is, and because it's not easy to read, I actually had to write on the side Shift plus A, Shift plus E, left out plus G are what these ones are for. So you'd have to go and hunt them out to use them. Whereas this is dead easy to use. So if you look at this particular library, it's got a whole load of methods through here that you can use. Now, one that excited me quite a lot is it's got this add abbreviation. Now, the add abbreviation is similar to auto hotkeys. They've got a thing called a hot string, which you type an abbreviation and it will then do a text expand for you. So we can do that straight away in this. So I thought, well, that's cool. Let's play with this one. So I started to do the keyboard hotkey. So let's just get to that one there. I'll close these other ones off. I'll close that one there off, and come into here. So we don't need that one. So let's get the keyboard hotkeys through here. So I suddenly thought, well, okay, then we got the keyboard through here. I'm just using keyboards. Ignore these other two just for the moment, and I'm now going to run this script. So I can do a few things from there. So if I just come in and have that popped up to there, I'm going to run this script here now, and then I'm going to come through and I'm going to type Control plus F1. So Control plus F1, and it writes out all of my hotkeys. So I've got Control plus O, I've got Control plus Shift plus K. So let's just do demonstrate a couple of these. So this may or may not work. Shift A space, there it goes. So this one here is taking the @ symbol and it's replacing it with this long string. So this is quite good. You can actually just have a whole lot of text expanders for all your email stuff, or maybe your passwords and stuff like that, although I wouldn't really suggest your passwords. That's one which is just called XX, so I don't have to use a shift and something to actually get that. So I can type XX spacebar, and so the spacebar actually triggers that to happen. So you don't want this to be something like hi spacebar, or else it'll expand into something mad. Now the other thing which I find, sometimes you want multi-line information. So here we actually have another one which is II spacebar. And you see we can suddenly put quite a lot of text in behind that. So instead of typing all of that out, you can actually just type II. So this is, so if you ended up with a disclaimer at the bottom of each email, and there were different ones depending on who you were sending them to, you can actually just have different text expanders to do that. So that's cool. This is stuff that you can do in auto hotkeys, and so you can do it in Python. That's fantastic. So we've got to that level of things going through here. We can sort of get this, but we've got to go and write it somewhere to do this sort of thing. So what else have we got into there? Now, one of the other things that we got, now because it's a Python script, we can't see it down in here. So what do we do? And so how do we get out of this program? So do I actually have to come into here, go and find where the Python script is, and end the task? And it's not letting me do that, and it's not letting me do that. And I think if we do a refresh, we'll find that it's not actually there at all. So how do I call that process? So at the beginning, I was suddenly thinking, well, I haven't got a little tray menu icon, so let's put in a hotkey for doing that. Now, the original one for this was Control plus Escape. Now, when I ran that as Control plus Escape, it didn't work. And I'll explain why in a minute. So anyway, it's this one here. So if I just go Control plus 0, you'll see we've now broken out of the program. We've stopped the program. It says print stop, and then it kills the process. So that's what the OS and Signal are. They are just getting away, breaking out of that thing without actually going into here to actually task managers to actually kill them out themselves. So on the basic level, we're able to do text expand, and we're able to do hotkeys and do a lot of stuff. In fact, let's just run back into this one here again. We're just going to run it, and sorry, back into there. Run it again. Why are you unmatched script path? So here, I just want to demonstrate this again. So on here, I've got one called Control plus Shift plus K. And when I run that, you'll see down here, it's going through the whole thing of doing the web scrape, and it's going to send me the email with the same grocery bill, and we get the little email notification down the bottom here. So fundamentally, we can do the same things inside auto hotkey and inside of Python. The only thing is, can we do something a little bit better than this? So one of the things that there's a little library called Infini Systray. Now the Systray, I think, is just Systray library is just for Mac OS. So the Infi Systray is for Windows. So what this means is that we can now run. Sorry, now let me just kill out of that. Sorry, I've got to come into there. Control 0, we quit out of that. So now I can come into this one here, and if we come in and look, we've got a little icon. And right at the very bottom, it's actually saying Python scripts is the icon thing through here, and it's got an icon, it's not got a very good icon. And then inside of here, I can actually have a help information, and I can have a pop-up box. So this is exactly the same as all the hotkeys, so I can do the same thing. So this is handy. So this is how I would set it up, because a lot of the times I might not be using these scripts frequently, but I can actually look up which ones I do. I suddenly think, oh, that's a Python one, so I can then I look up my Python one, and I have this long, massive list of the things that I actually want. Okay, boom, through that, and then I can get out of it. So I'm just going to control out of here. Now, the next part of this bit of the story. Now, there's a couple of things going into here. I was suddenly saying this was control plus escape. It didn't work. Now, going back into the library inside of here, when you actually look at keyboard modifiers, these are things it sees as text for modifiers. Right control, right shift, right windows, shift, windows, and all of these other ones. And these are the ones for getting the modifier key. So it allows you to use Alt plus or Control plus or Shift plus or Windows plus or left Windows plus or right Alt plus, etc., etc. So those modifiers keys, but it didn't recognize the escape. Some things it does recognize, and this is where it's got these ones here, keyboard key down equals down, keyboard up equals up, there. So there's some other things that you need to do in that. When I was running this script as well, right at the very bottom, when it was doing the abbreviations, in this way, it wasn't working. I ended up having to add these other things onto the end to make them work. So I was finding they're a little bit sticky. Sometimes work, sometimes not working. But generally we got them working. So we then come to the next part of this. So let's switch through. Now if I was to fire up, no, I don't know if I've got any of them fired up at the moment. Have I got it fired up? It is fired up. So I'm just going to go into there and go Control O. So we're out. So we shouldn't actually have anything running. Good. So now, if I come into here, now I'm going to start the one with the keyboard hotkey. Now this was the issue that I had at the beginning. So if I run this keyboards hotkey.py, did it run? Let's just get that up and just go spacebar. No, it's not running. So keyboard hotkey, and there it's running. So this pops up as a command window. So we can actually close this down here. So we can come into here and we can go shut it down. So that's how we quit. But if we don't want the command console to come up, we can actually do it in another way. We can actually use the .pyw extension. So if I now click on the pyw extension, which I think is running, so let's just check and see whether it's running. Yeah, so it's running, and it's running that. So this is an earlier version of the thing. But how do I know, because I haven't got anything inside here, how do I know, one, that that's running? The only way that I can test it's running is to actually trigger something. I think that shift space doesn't work. I might make shift and, no, that's not working. No, that's not working. The only way that I know that working is to go and test a hotkey and see if something happens. So I might need to have one to actually do a pop-up. So that's why I ended up with that Control O to actually quit that program until I ended up with the so that was the issue with that. So this is the thing. If you want to have, so I can actually take a copy V now, that copy V, there we are. So let's just go through and rename that one PYW. Yeah, we're going to do that. Now, when I trigger this, we should actually have the tray icon. No, I didn't trigger it. See if my tray icons come through. Don't seem to. Let's just do I. No, it's still not working. No. Oh, sorry. And the reason why it's not doing that, this was the point that I was trying to make with that one, is that you actually have to use this hash exclamation mark and then the path to the python.w file. Now let's just go back to the Python file. So this is a straight Python file. So when no, I can't run it from here. I've got to run it from here. So, there we go. No, when we run this one. So when I run just the normal Python file, so I'm going to run that, and here's that running through. If we actually look in the background through here, you'll see we're running Python, and that's what's actually running that script. And if we just do a view refresh, is it running at the top there? There we are. So if we're looking at the Python, it's running the console and it's running the thing. So this ends up being about 16 megabytes. And if we recollect, the auto hotkey was running with about 3.5 megabytes. So it's using a bit more resources. Now, what I can do in here is that you've got to, in the debob, you've got to use this path to where not the Python file is. So if we just go into there, into there, instead of where the Python file is, the python.exe, we've got to use this python.w.exe. So that's what we need to put at the top of our script. So I made another hotkeys one copy, which is a pyw one. So at the top of that, I've got to tell it a path to where my Python W script is. Now, if I come back and run this straight from straight from here, keyboards one, that should have triggered. So there we are. So it's now running. So you see it's ready. We can get the health info from there, and that's all running. Now this comes down to the next bit that I just want to talk about. If you want to trigger this every time you start the computer, so as soon as you do it, it's just going to run in the background. So you don't have to think about initializing or do anything like that. You come into here, you take that file, and you create a shortcut. The reason why you create a shortcut is that we're going to now go into here, and we're going to type run. And then what we're going to type, or which is in here already, but I'll just put it inside here, is the shell startup. Now if you go into the shell startup, this is when Windows starts, it comes and sees if there's any executables. And so if you put the shortcut into here, get across here. What's happening with that? Copy V. There we are. If you put this keyboard shortcut, now you put the keyboard shortcut in there because you don't want to go in here to modify your code. You want to modify your code in your main directory where you're keeping your code. So you don't have to go fossicking around to actually do this. So always put your shortcuts in this startup. So this is the startup area. So that means if I actually just close out of here, and I can't do the quit on there, I've actually got to do the Control-0 onto that. And there it's gone. So when Windows starts, it will come through, and where were we? There we are. It'll now start it as soon as it starts Windows. So there, it's running in the background straight away. So you just sit in the background and it's ready to go. So now, if I type II spacebar, there's that. If I type, actually, oh no, it is, so it's the one that we have. So if I just type Shift at, and there's that one. If I type XX spacebar, XX doesn't seem to be working at the moment. I have noted on some of these auto expander ones, I'm not quite getting, I don't know if this timeout thing is right or what. I've got to play with it a little bit more because their preliminary ones in here are a little bit too simplistic. I couldn't get this one to work for a long while, and yeah, I could get other ones to work, other things as well. The other thing as well, block forever is you can actually have this keyboard wait, and that just says when it runs through and loads up the script, right at the very end you want keyboard wait, which just suddenly says don't close it down, just leave it waiting, and then you've got to force it to close all the way through. So I have had a few little oddities using the pyw extension, and it's sort of ended up locking a bit of my screen up, and I've actually had to log out and log back in again and reset it up again. So just be aware, this may be not the most fantastic script as done, but this one here of getting the path to where your Python W script is seems to work a lot better. It then allows it to run better than if you're doing it the other way. The other thing as well that I just want to draw your attention to is now if we refresh this now, it's not in here. So you don't see it here, but if you come down here to Python, it's got two. It's slightly bigger, but it's also got a Python 32, which I think has got something to do with the not having the window. But what it means is if you're running that script directly, which is what you want to do, to run the thing, it's got to find this new location of what it's doing, because you don't want the unless you actually want the command prompt sitting down the bottom here, and most of the time you don't. So I'll put all of these scripts up on there, and also the modified one for the order hotkey one, where I've actually just put that help file. Now at this point in time, this is something that I would start off with, and I'd start tweaking. I'd come into here and I'd add another thing, and I was suddenly thinking, oh, that's a nice script, I could actually have onto there. And what I find is that I end up with suddenly quite a few scripts that I have, and then I'm suddenly thinking, no, this one I don't use, this one I don't use that. I sometimes use that or something like that. And inside order hotkey, I've got something, this one here, which is order hotkey command picker, where I put things that I use once in a while. They're good bits of script that I quite like using, and so I'll put them somewhere that if I suddenly think, oh, I've got a use for that, I go through and use that one there. And some of them a little bit verbose. I ended up doing numbers just to trigger them all off. Like I think the 1 1 enter, oops, enter. It suddenly opens up a massive load of tabs that I've actually got particular ones that I use all the time. They're sort of handy scripts, but maybe if I am using them all the time, I put them on hotkey. If I find I'm not using them and I'm running out of hotkeys or strings on my keyboard, I'll shuffle them off, because they're not used to the frequency that I use them overall. So all in all, Python, in my opinion, can now do exactly the same as order hotkey, and it can do the calling of the actual hotkey on one line, and then it's just calling a function. So it's exactly the way that order hotkey version 2 now runs. So and I think I'll be doing some more, because it's just purely Pythonic rather than messing around with order hotkey and Python. I'm not too sure which way I go, but I'm happy to see that this is the Python just does a lot of the things, not quite as there's order hotkey still got a couple of other refinements that I might just see if I can find inside of Python to actually do. But overall, this works marvelously for me. So I hope you found that of interest. If you found it handy, please give a thumbs up. I'll put the code so that you can upload it and enjoy.